Well, for tonight's Essential Workers segment, our Chris Thomason checked in with local cardiologists on all the work that they continue to do through the pandemic.
Hey there, Coastal Bend. Chris Thomason here. All month long, we're talking with essential workers, and this week we're focusing on the medical field. I had a chance to catch up with Dr. Thomas Alexander, who's a cardiologist for the Corpus Christi Heart Clinic. Now, he says that patients with heart problems might have fears about coming to see their doctors in person, but he says he's more worried about those patients, really, than even his own health.
We are seeing patients with delayed their care coming in with heart attacks, loss of limb, heart failure, severe heart failure. So we're actually now starting to push forwards with the message that please contact us, come and see us. We are following all the CDC guidelines as far as social distancing in our office, cleaning our where the patients are examined, but it is important that patients seek care if they have symptoms.
All right, thanks, Dr. Alexander, for everything you and all the other essential workers out there for everything you're doing during this pandemic. For 3 News, I'm Chris Thomason.